right, everybody, welcome back to Hack the NAB Show 2020. We are streaming and recording a new episode chapter of this awesome event with Epiphan. Are you guys with me? George, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Paul.
Look at you. You are in you went all the way to Las Vegas. Didn't you know it's canceled?
Yeah, exactly. I decided I'd have a little bit of fun with the whole virtual NAB thing and decide to bring a little bit of the booth with me. Obviously, it's fake. I think, like many people in these times, get to experiment with all kinds of cool technology, and it's amazing how cheap with things like Zoom you can get a green screen going and play around with it. So it's kind of fun.
Your key looks incredible. I've seen a lot of people playing around with this technology. What are you doing differently?
So the big thing is, Zoom's automatic keyer is actually really powerful if you actually have a green screen. If you're just using it on whatever blank wall you have behind you, you do kind of get those edges that I know you've seen throughout the day with some people, and it's not very clean. In my case, I do have an actual green screen behind me, and I do have some LED lights, kind of lighting me up and lighting the green screen a little bit better than maybe some people would normally have in their home office. But honestly, it was a very inexpensive investment right as we all went into lockdown to kind of get my home office set up for this. And it's been well worth it, not just for this event, but we have been taking the opportunity during these crazy times to crank out a ton of content, doing multiple webinars a week, doing just all kinds of video stuff. I spent most of the morning doing a different video shoot and then jumping in and kind of watching you guys in the side the whole time. So, yeah, it's interesting times in which we find ourselves.
Well, let me. I have to say, first of all, your green screen looks amazing, and
Thank you.
it's nice to know. I wasn't sure if you're using some type of other software, so you're just using Zoom. That's really
I am.
enabling for to hear that. So my first question for you, George, is what was Epiphan planning on releasing at the 2020 NAB show?
Yeah, so this was going to be a little bit different of a product for Epiphan. Most people probably know Epiphan for our capture cards, like our AVIO HD or AVIO 4K, or they may know us for our hardware encoders like the Pearl Mini or the Pearl 2. And those are things that we've always done, video capture, streaming, recording, that kind of stuff. But the way we've been seeing a lot of things in the broader AV and especially live event industry change, and I think as one of your previous guests mentioned, things have accelerated pretty quickly in the past month or two. Um, what we were planning on launching at NAB was a product called LiveScript. And what I'll do is I'll just share my screen here because I do have a couple of slides. And you'll forgive me on your production side. I use an ultra wide monitor at home, so it's going to look a little funnier. But I love using an ultra wide, so I won't apologize that much. Um, but basically, LiveScript is an AI based on the fly transcription service. So normally we would see transcription being done. Most people think about court reporters, stenographers, right? That's the most traditional way people think about transcription. Um, but we're seeing transcription become very important in many other ways, especially within live events. Um, the drive of the demand here is accessibility, diversity, engagement, and oftentimes legal requirements as well. Um, and so we decided that the best way to try and tackle this in order to make it more accessible was to look at a product that was an AI based live transcription piece. Um, so that's kind of what we did. So LiveScript is what we're planning on launching. It has launched. We officially launched it last week. Of course, we planned on a huge setup at NAB and really showing it off. So we kind of have been having to do that virtually, um, and kind of looking at that. Now, right away, some people might look at it and saying, "Well, live events aren't so live at the moment." Luckily, the way we built LiveScript is it's extremely usable even beyond the physical in-person place where you might normally assume it would be used. So one of the things we wanted to tackle is traditional transcription. Hiring a human transcriptionist is expensive. I don't know if you've ever looked at trying to do that yourself, but these are professional people. They charge a fair rate, $100 to $200 per hour. And I think for large events, large companies, that's not a big deal. But if you're in a smaller environment, especially maybe, I think something that's come up throughout the day as a common theme with all of the guests is maybe people like churches, where they don't have the huge budgets or they can't necessarily bring people into a venue in current conditions. They might need something else. You can't coordinate it. You just need something a little easier. And so for us, it made sense in our kind of big portfolio of making things easy when it came to streaming and recording to add this as part of the toolbox. Um, Minimize the cost, make it as fast as possible, and make it as usable as possible. That's kind of the goal. So it is AI based, um, and what it basically gives us is a new way of doing this instead of having someone sitting at a keyboard. So everyone's kind of getting familiar with AI stuff. Everyone has an Android phone or an Apple phone, and they've used some level of these assistants or Alexa or Google Home or whatever it might be. The technology is starting to really become easy to use and powerful, and everyone's used to it now. I mean, when grandma's using Alexa, people are used to using AI services now, let's be honest. So the way we approached it was creating a dedicated hardware device with a low cost per hour transcription fee, basically for the amount of data being used. And it's real time, it's accurate. And right now, currently, it supports 30 different languages and variants of those, and will be expanded to support many more. And after your event, you can either download a text file or an SRT file, which you could use for all kinds of different post production needs. You can enable profanity filters. It has automatic punctuation, all these different things, um, just to make it super easy. So it's, a lot of people are probably going to say, well, my Android phone can do some of this, and that's partially true. Google Translate has some transcription stuff built into it now. But if you wanted to build this out as a service, that could be extremely complicated. So this is kind of, if you wanted to figure out how to do this yourself, you might need to first decide on an AI engine. You might then decide on a cloud service to run it all through. You then might need all these other components to deliver the final transcribed piece of content. So our goal was, again, to simplify that. So what we went with was, again, the dedicated hardware, which will take our professional audio inputs, XLR, TRS, whatever people have, bring it into the dedicated hardware, which is super easy with a simple pairing code to set up with the cloud subscription service. And then with a video output on the hardware and live streamed on the web, people can view the resulting transcription. So in the more traditional live event space, which is currently not too active, you might have displayed it on a larger monitor in a live event space so that people who have maybe difficulty hearing, they have disabilities that are limiting what they can hear audibly, you could have a large display with the transcription being shown. Or maybe if they're at home and they need to see a transcription of it for the same reasons, or because they can't have the sound turned on for some reason, they could have a web page up showing a live transcription of what's happening as well. This also allows us to bring that into a live workflow. And we've kind of experimented, a hack, if you will, not the hack example I'm going to talk about later, but to actually, bring this video signal into an encoder, crop out what you need, and essentially get a live transcription lower third running on your video. So there's been a lot of powerful ways to use this. We're pretty excited to see where it goes. We've already had a huge number of customers in all kinds of different areas, kicking down the door trying to get this. And it's everything from the huge, massive, juggernauts in live AV space, all the way to smaller churches or anything in between. We've been contacted by governments and all kinds of things to say, okay, yes, I need this because, traditionally transcription is post production or, written. This kind of changes that game quite a bit. So yeah, that's kind of what we planned on announcing. And of course, I'll be in the breakout room afterwards if people have more questions about LiveScript, because it's kind of a new way to think about things. And sometimes it takes a little bit of conversation to try and get people's heads around, where this might fit within their workflow. But we're pretty excited about it. I lost your audio, Paul. I don't know if your batteries died again or.
Very sorry, I forgot to turn my back on.
No
Um,
problem.
oh gosh, it's been a long stream.
Yeah,
Um,
you've been going for a while on this, so I can't criticize that. I admire your stamina.
well, what I was saying to myself is that Epiphan has been known really well in the higher education space for lecture capture and distance learning, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about the transformation that's happening there. Obviously, every school in the United States and many across the world have been shut down, turned to distance
Mhm.
learning, virtual classrooms. Um, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on there and what you're seeing, in that space?
Yeah, well, of course, I mean, education is one that we've, over the years slowly seen a progression towards more online learning, more digital-based tools for lecture capture and those things. But definitely in these times, that is absolutely exploded in a huge way, where schools that have maybe never considered e-learning, distance learning, and working with all these different tools, have had to figure it out really quickly. And so we've had, I mean, honestly, the phone's ringing off the hook. Difficult to keep things on the shelf because things are flying out of stock like at unbelievable rates. It's amazing. Um, I'm getting to help so many different people in so many different ways, which has been awesome. And some of our education partners, they were already working on implementing, a lot of lecture capture scenarios. And we've just kind of seen that expand. So we did a webinar a couple weeks ago where we brought in a guest from one of our customers at a university in Belgium, and they use our Pearl Mini as a lecture capture appliance for integrating with Kaltura as a content management system. And they were already deploying this and working on it, and we'd done some nice stuff with them. And then this all happened, everything got shut down. They've actually gotten to the point where, they'll use a lot of, like what we're doing now with Zoom to bring people in from their homes to do remote learning. But some people are not equipped to have that up and running in their homes. Either they don't have computers that are sufficient enough, or they didn't buy a webcam months ago, and good luck buying one now in many cases. And so they're really struggling to figure out how do they do this. And they actually started shipping Pearl Minis to some of these people's homes so that they could basically just plug it in, pre-configured, get it on their network, and it's already pre-configured to link into Kaltura in the cloud, and they can do their normal teaching, their normal instruction, and just stand in front of a camera with a Pearl Mini sitting there. Everything can be automated. So we've seen a lot of that, which has been great. But even just the really basic setups of using capture cards with cameras that are either easy to get or people may already own, and then bringing that together. So capture cards has been a big part as well. And that's those have been the ones that are by far have been hard to keep on the shelves because they're selling so quickly.
Wow. Well, that is good news to hear. And I'm wondering if you have any, tips for stay-at-home teachers or folks who are trying to do virtual classrooms and lecture capture.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenging one because it really depends on the type of content you're trying to present. Myself, because I've been hosting a lot of these webinars that we've been trying to produce as a company, I feel like a lot of what I've learned is um, transferable in the sense that making sure you have the right setup and that you're comfortable using the setup, because at the end of the day, you want your content to be the best it can be. And some of your previous guests have mentioned this before. One of the things that cannot suffer, especially within a learning environment, is audio. Cameras, you can kind of, you can get a cheaper webcam and probably get away with it. Although I'm pretty excited about the ones you guys talked about today that you're releasing. Um, but audio is a big one. If you have bad audio, everything falls apart. The content falls apart. So what I'm doing, you can probably just see it in my camera frame here a little bit. I'm using a higher quality USB microphone just into my desktop computer, and it's on an arm coming from the side of the desk, almost the typical streamer type setup, if you will. Um, but it's allowed me to really increase the quality of audio that I might have otherwise used. I normally use a headset, and it's pretty good. It's one of the higher end Corsair ones. It's pretty good, but using a higher quality microphone beyond that really, really helps. And it's also less visual because I can keep it out of the frame a little bit, and that can help make things less distracting instead of having a giant microphone in your face. Um, I really like the boom that you're wearing today, Paul. It's that's nice and slim and pretty hidden. But a lot of the gaming headset style, the big bulky cans and the giant boom in your face, I find it distracting. I don't really love that look. I much prefer the cleaner, more in-person style. And I think a lot of people do prefer to consume that style as well. So I've tried to do that in my home. Obviously, having the green screen and lighting adds to the visual elements as well. So I definitely recommend that. Um, we kind of had the advantage that we started working from home fairly early, actually. We kind of saw where things were going pretty quickly and said, you know what, let's start early and see how it goes. And it's actually gone really, really well. So because of that, I was able to buy a few things on Amazon or wherever to improve my working space before everything sold out. But of course, certain other things are getting harder and harder to find. So that's I would recommend it if you can get things like green screens and lighting. It doesn't have to be expensive. It can be pretty inexpensive. I think I invested maybe about $120 in lighting and a green screen, and that's about it. So it can be inexpensive and make a big difference in quality.
Well, I had to say something because there have been a few people on this show today who joined and I could barely see them. And they were like holding something up to show it. And it was just like chunks of the thing that they were holding were going away. And I was just like, look at George. I don't even see any pixelation around you or anything like that.
No, exactly. I mean, the other thing, obviously, the biggest reality probably in these times is your internet connection, right? I mean, maybe what you used to be able to get away with in your normal home use was okay, but you might, depending on again, the kind of content you're trying to produce, you might want to look at, if you can, upgrading the internet that you have. You know, what you used to do for Netflix is pure download. That isn't really the part of the equation we're talking about when we're talking about content creation. We're talking about upload. And that's one of the areas that I think a lot of people in their homes have ignored traditionally because they're not streamers. And the reality is once you become a streamer for whatever reason, whether you're a teacher or a pastor in a church, that's a new tool that you need to learn about and develop.
Well, George, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It's been a pleasure. Take care. Stay
Absolutely.
safe.
Yeah, I'll see people in the breakout.
All right. You can join George in the Zoom breakout session. You can ask Tess for that information if you haven't already received it. It's time to bring on our friends from the X Keys after this short break. Stick with us, everybody. We'll see you soon.